Good morning, everybody. Today is December 19th, 2024. When we come back next Thursday, we will have celebrated Christmas together. That's how fast everything is going. But it's a blessing, isn't it? It's a blessing to be alive one more Christmas. And no matter how you celebrate it, I mean, even if you chose to spend too much money and you're going to be in debt for all of 2025, you did something this season that made you happy. So that's good for you. It's not good for me. So I'm hoping that more and more of us in this country, not just people listening here, but more of us in this country understand how we get money just to spend it. We don't save it. All we're doing is making rich people richer. I went into Whole Foods a couple of days ago to get something, or no, to return something from Amazon. I almost never go in there because, it's got good stuff, but it's really expensive. And when I walked up to that, I said, that daggone Jeff Bezos is using all of our money. And that, Whole Food Markets is always full, always full. I said, that daggone Jeff Bezos is using the money that we give to him, to his company, and building things and going to the daggone moon. There's something in me that is rebelling against that. And I hope that if we are going to spend money, that we are concentrating more, if you're African American, concentrating on um, uh, supporting African American vendors, supporting small businesses, all of that, so that there will be more wealth amongst us. The plan for those who believe in a certain kind of justice is for there to be equal wealth distribution or equal distribution of wealth, and there's not. And if we don't start doing something differently, especially Black people, they estimate that by, I think it's year 2050, we won't have any wealth at all. We cannot go like that. We cannot. And those who have a lot of money, I'm hoping that rather than you being more interested in getting more money, because the more money you get, the more you want, I'm hoping that all of us will just think about how we can enhance the power, the economic power of our communities. Small businesses open, operated by women, of course, by Black people, by Hispanics, by the Somali population. We need to support ourselves. The people in power don't care about us. Let me say that they don't care about us. And when you read and hear how regimes in other countries have been so brutal and so oppressive that people have had to move out of their homes, you don't hear about that a lot. But I just listened to a podcast where a woman in South Africa, she had a grandmother, they came from South Africa, and when the apartheid regime took over, her grandparents had to leave the house that they had been in for all their lives. There's all these forced, we talk about mass deportations, but we talk about forced people who are forced out of their homes for any number of different reasons. We are in for a rough ride. And I'm going to tell you again, billionaires do not care about us. All they care about is making more money. I shudder when I think about healthcare. I've been reading and hearing all these stories about how insurance companies are trying to, they made a decision. Blue Cross Blue Shield actually made a decision that they were going to regulate and control the number of hours a person could be in surgery before they stop paying for the surgery and the anesthesia. What the heck? What are you talking about? People who are ill and in the hospitals as business people take over who only care about profits. Some people are being made to go home before it's time for them to go home, before they are healed. There is something wrong, and we have to wake up. We have to wake up, and we have to do something about it. We have come a long way, but we can stop our own progress by just not paying attention. And so I'm going to say, to encourage everybody to just start saving money. Just start saving money. Just get yourself in the habit. You know how you have habits? You come into the house, there's certain things you do. You come into the house, you take off your shoes, I don't know, go to the bathroom, you wash your hands, then you go to the refrigerator. I always use that example when I'm talking about the difficulty of fasting. And you realize when you're fasting that there are certain things you do in sequence. We get into routines. So we get into routines of spending all of our money. Get into the habit of putting $10 away, 10 measly dollars in income, 10 measly dollars. So that when you overdraw your account, you have money in savings to take care of it. But you're also learning how to manage your money so that your overdraws become less and less. Learn how to manage money. We should be having classes and lessons in that, because most of us, all we do is spend. I said it to my daughter yesterday. We learn to spend. You get that money in your pocket and you have got to spend it. It burns a hole in your pocket, as my mama used to say. And so we can't do that. And I'm just saying that because when I was out the other day to take something back to, I was returning something and I had to take it into Amazon. I mean, took it into Amazon. You see where my mind is. I had gotten this thing from Amazon. I didn't want it. And I was turning it back in and I went to Whole Foods. And I promise you, I just stood outside that store for a minute and said, look at what we are doing to ourselves. Look at what we're doing to ourselves. Look at it. We have to understand that we are in a very precarious place. On that podcast I just listened to I talked about how and the and so how racism is just so much more insidious than we realize. It's so deeply ingrained. And I didn't know, we all talk about Plessy versus Ferguson, that where the black man got on the train in the white car. He could pass for white, but he got in the white car, and then he was made to get off. And it turns out that he and his attorneys planned that whole thing because they were tired of black people being relegated to the colored car, which is what they called it. So his lawyers and his friends knew that he was black, but the other people didn't anyway. They took him off, and that's what the attorneys wanted. So they filed this case, and ultimately, as they went through the process of ruling against him that he had broken the law by being in the white car, his attorney said, "Well, you don't even know if he's black. He's a white. He looks white. You couldn't have told that he was black unless he told you, unless you." And what the white people's attorney said, "Well, no, we didn't have to know he was black. We could smell him." Really? That's a much more fascinating story than I realized. But I'm telling you, there are all types of things that are out here that are called parts of the thing we call powers and principalities. And I don't know how what these next couple of years, 4 years, are going to look like, but I know they're not going to be good. So I'm just going to say again, be frugal, be smart, cook inside your house more than you go out to eat. Go out every now and then, but cook more inside your house. Make sure that you are saving money so that you are preparing yourself for whatever craziness may come. It's up to us, to save ourselves. It is up to us. It's not going to be, Jesus is not going to fly down and say, don't mess with the people. That's never happened. And this whole thing called racism and sexism and oppression in general, Jesus does not fly down and save us. We have always had to fight for our rights, and they are trying to take away our rights: freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of speech. I hope you're paying attention, and I hope that you are preparing yourself. Amen. Anyway, thank you. That's my rant for this morning. My name is Reverend Susan Smith. I'm with Crazy Faith Ministries in Columbus, Ohio, and you have joined me. Thank you very much for Thursday morning, a reading from my book, Rest for the Justice-Seeking Soul. And I'm real happy to report that some people have written me and say, I want to order 4 or 5 more. So good. That's what we want. Keep ordering them. I'm just loving that you're doing that, and I'm real honored that you're doing that. For those of you who are with me every Thursday morning, I'm honored that you come in. Now I'm going to ask that you please go to our YouTube page and on Facebook and like us and subscribe. Like and subscribe. That's very important. And so it helps us out. But here we are on Thursday morning. And I always read all right, so we started this thing out. I was going to read from my book every single week, but I've been doing these Thursday morning things for a minute, and they only put 90 of the I don't know how many hundreds of meditations that I wrote in that book. So I go back to those meditations every now and then on Thursday morning, actually, because I like them. They stimulate me. But I also write a meditation every single Tuesday, and I send it out I have a distribution list, which is growing and growing and growing. And so I say to you that if you want a meditation on a weekly basis, because I never miss writing the meditations, email me at crazyfaith2019@gmail.com, and I'll put your name and your email address on my list, and you will begin to get the meditations the following week. Amen. So today, I'm not reading from the book. I read from the book earlier this week when I did a meditation for a group of people at the National Council of Churches. But today, I'm just going to do the meditation that I wrote for this week because it really moved me. And sometimes I just, we can forget things that have gone on in our lives that have affected us. And I forget, as we all do, but I remembered a thing that in my house that really had an impact on me and might help us all. This experience that I had might help us all to get through these difficult days that we're experiencing right now. So, I'm going to read the meditation lessons I learned from a lemon meringue pie. My mother was a good cook and an almost flawless baker. When she was baking anything, I would stand in the kitchen at her side, watching how she measured the dry ingredients and then sifted them. You don't have to do much of that anymore, but she sifted them. How she creamed the butter or margarine and added sugar in implements till it was just the right consistency. How she separated egg yolks from the whites with grace, never allowing any of the yolk to sneak into the egg whites. And I was fascinated. I would watch her make the foundation of what would be homemade ice cream, seeming not to have to measure anything, but knowing just how much of all the ingredients should be added. And I watched her make pie crusts and biscuits and rolls from scratch. She would share with me how the trick for good rolls or biscuits or pie crust was to feel the consistency of the dough as one was making the bread, either when it was still a flour and shortening mixture or after water was added to make it dough. Sometimes she would let me knead the dough after had gotten it roll out ready. She would let me knead the dough for the biscuits or rolls. And when she did that, I felt like I was on my way to becoming a master baker. She made it look so easy to pick the dough of a pie crust up from the surface where she had rolled it out and place it in the Pyrex dish that would hold the pie, and with deft fingers she would flute the edges so that the crust looked good enough and pretty enough to be put on the cover of a Good Housekeeping magazine. So one day she said to me, "Okay, Susan, I'm going to let you make a lemon meringue pie." To be honest, I don't remember asking her if I could do that, but she was going to ask me to do it. And I thought, well, if Mama thinks I'm good enough to do it, I'm cool. I'm down with that. And I don't remember how old I was, but my ego swelled when she told me that. Like I said, I didn't ask questions about what to do because I had seen her make the pie so often. So I felt like I knew what to do and when. So my first indication that my confidence was ill-placed was when I made the crust. I had difficulty getting it to the right consistency so that it would roll out correctly. It kept falling apart. It took several do-overs to get it right. And to be honest, I was surprised. How could I not have done it like my mother, who had been making pies for years, and I'd been watching her? Well, once I conquered that part of the process and got the pie crust into the oven, or into the plate first and then into the oven, I found that it was no small thing to make perfectly fluted edges. I finally had a reasonable facsimile of what I knew it was supposed to be or look like. So it was done. The edges weren't perfect like my mama's, but it was done. So I proudly put it in the oven and moved on to begin making the lemon custard. But when I looked into the oven, I was mortified. I can still feel that. The crust was rising up. Instead of lying flat in the pie dish, little mounds of dough had risen up like little mountains in the bottom of the Pyrex dish. And I said, "What?" And I took the crust out and looked at it and put it on top of the stove. My mother, who was in the house and nearby, heard me and hollered out, "Is the crust done?" "No," I said, "there are little hills in the dough." And before I could say anything else, she said, "Throw it out and do it again." Really? That's how we doing this? Throw it out and do it again. Listen, I did that pie crust 3 times before I finally made holes in the dough and then put a piece of tin foil on the bottom of it just to make sure that it wouldn't rise. Those little hills would not rise in the dough. So really now, after the dough thing, after the crusting, I was pretty done, but the pie wasn't done. So it was the custard. And I felt like, oh, I can do this. I had seen my mother make the custard hundreds of times, and I thought I had it down, but my mixture of the cornstarch and the sugar and the egg yolks would not cooperate. The custard would not thicken. I started to cry after a while. But my mother, who came into the kitchen during my third try to get it right, ignored my tears and just mumbled, "You're going to need some more eggs." She left the house to buy them. She just left me there. And when she got home, she said, "Do it again." I went through 2 dozen eggs that day. And I don't remember how much sugar and cornstarch I wasted until finally, after several more attempts, I got the custard right. And this brings me, because I remember that moment. I poured the custard into the crust, which had stayed flat thanks to my piece of tin foil in the dish, and then I turned my attention to the meringue, because that's when you put a lemon meringue pie into the oven after you do the meringue. By this time, I had way more than enough egg whites, only the egg yolks of the eggs went into the custard, then I had to make several times. So I didn't waste any egg yolks, but all these egg whites. And breathing a sigh of relief because I was almost done, I turned the beater up as high as I could go, and after some minor difficulties, managed to get the meringues to the needed and necessary consistency, which I gratefully put atop the meringue and tossed the finished product into the oven. I was done when the meringue was brown and the little brown crescents on top of the meringue, because I tried to make it look like my mother's always looked. I took the pie out of the oven and I looked at it. Me and my inner self, had made it through. Only then did my mother come into the kitchen and hug me and say, "You did a good job. You watched me, but today you learned how to apply what you watched. You won't ever struggle making a lemon meringue pie like that again, like you did today." And I wasn't so sure about that, but I accepted her prediction in grateful silence. What normally would take my mother maybe an hour total to accomplish had taken me almost 4 hours. I thought about that experience as I was thinking about where we are as a nation. We have watched and read about different types of oppression and how the foot soldiers at the time handled it. But now, after some years of relative reprieve and calm, the starkness of raw and unfiltered hatred and bigotry, accompanied by unfettered state sanctioned violence, is hitting us all in the face. What we have watched, we will only have to study a bit more and be prepared to find out in real time all of the things that our observing and studying have not revealed to us. We will be in a metaphorical kitchen, working to make a product called justice, learning what we don't know or didn't observe closely enough as we watched and studied. And as we make our way through the wildernesses of danger and anger and despair and frustration, making mistakes, the ancestors will be nearby saying to us as we make our mistakes, "Do it again, do it again." I read Jeff Charlotte's book, The Undertow Scenes from a Slow Civil War, and I realized that the belief of some who want civil war, that God is on their side and wants civil war as well as wants civil war as well, will be something with which we will have to be aware and learn how to fight. We will have to keep our eyes on the vision of dignity for all, all God's people, and not give up because the efforts we are making may not immediately result in the product we are after. Remember that daggone lemon pie. Remember how many times it took. The ancestors will be with us. We will hear them say, "Do it again." And with God's grace, strength, love, and encouragement, we will do it. I cried tears of frustration as I tried to get that lemon meringue pie right. I know we will cry as well as individuals and as communities and as a nation, as the powers and principalities work against us with privilege and money. They will have that power, but we will have the power of God, who is always near, like my mama was, but I was making that pie. God, who is always near, watching and saying, "Do it again." And we will remember the words of the psalmist: "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble, and we will be strengthened enough to press against injustice one more time." Amen and amen. I hope that meditation resonates with you. I hope that it does something inside of you to remind you of where we are and to remind you that we can do all things. It might take a minute, but we can do all things. We have a lot in front of us. Enjoy this Christmas. We don't know what is getting ready to happen when this new administration comes in, but I repeat, it's not going to be good. The billionaires do not care about us. They want our labor, they want our money, but they don't care about our lives. And that's the reality that we're facing. So remember the pie. Remember the fact that my mom was there. She saw the difficulty. I think she probably listened more more than she would ever admit. She was there. She knew when I was crying. She knew when I needed some more eggs. She knew it. God knows too. We just have to remember that. Keep our eyes on the prize and keep on pushing for liberty and justice for everybody, every single person. God bless you guys. Have a good Christmas. I'll see you next Thursday. Be safe. Say I love you to somebody who you love dearly and you haven't said it for a while. Hug somebody you don't know who's going to be here tomorrow. Do that. Do that. Do everything you can to keep your soul healthy, because all of us are going to need healthy souls as we go through this wilderness that we are in right now and are going deeper into. Take good care. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.